Let's bring in our guest who is going to expand. There's a lot I want to talk about with him on the program, but within the short time we have, I've been joined on the program by a life member of the PDP Board of Trustees, Chief Bode George. He joins us via Zoom. Chief, thank you so much for coming on the program. We appreciate it, sir.
Thank you very much for having me.
Chief, perhaps
it's always my pleasure.
Perhaps we'll start from where Chief Obasanjo left off. Let's piggyback from there before we get to details. But if I want to paraphrase what he's saying, it's simply saying that the democracy we practice now is a victim of a capture by the elites. Is that what you see as well?
No. You know, I of course I defer to Baba any day, any time. But my perception of what has gone wrong is slightly different. And that is that it is not democracy per se that has failed. It is the people, the process of getting representatives there is faulty. And so what do you get? Garbage in, garbage out. It is the people that have failed this nation. And, you know, you go through, but look at Ghana. Look at Ghana next door. The electoral process, the same we use in this country, was perfectly run. They had a general election recently, no qualms. Why is everything failing in Nigeria? The people, our process. You know, we have no regard, no respect for the rule of law. There's no justice, fairness, and equity. We decide the democracy is a tripod: the legislative, the executive, and the judiciary. A tripod is a very stable body. They must be independent, those three bodies. But what have we found? Somebody sits there in the villa, commands as if it's a unitary system of government. That is not democracy. The power resides with the people. And that is why for every 4 years, you go back to the people to renew your mandate. Our electoral process must be cleaned out. It is not democracy per se by the definition that is wrong. We, the people, are the people that are bad. We listen, we watch what they do during the electoral process. We see the shenanigans, the results, even when General Buhari bought new technology for this country. What did we do? We started subverting the system. The same system we used there. You remember the story of, there was a glitch. And the company that sold this system to us said, no, there was no glitch. You switched off the system in your country because we were watching you online. Nothing has been said about that. It's more attitudinal. There must be justice. There must be fairness. And the power resides with the people. And so if the power resides with the people, that is the real definition of democracy. And you go up, they queue up there. At the end of the day, the results you get is all manipulated. You know, they change the results to suit their purposes. What do you get? Garbage in, garbage out. So when Baba said it's not all over Africa. There is still some semblance of stability, you know, in some places. And this country, God gave this country so much resources, human resource. Go to any corner of this country. We have them. We have them, you know, agricultural resources, mineral resources, subsurface resources. We have so much of them. So what is going on? Of course, Baba defined it that it is the leadership, the people that I am saying. What brought about those leadership? How did they emerge? You know, so we got to completely go into in-depth analysis. Where are we going wrong?
All right, Chief.
And the people are just so spent up. They are watching and looking, helpless. Why is it everything never works in Nigeria? Why? Why?
You know, Chief,
It's a shame.
when I speak to persons, elder statesmen like you, I always use the term,
Yeah.
you are our benefit of hindsight. Mistakes have been made,
Yeah.
progress have been made,
Oh, yeah.
depending on what you're looking
Plenty.
at. So, so we will use your benefit of the hindsight to evaluate some of the things we are seeing. Now, let's use a practical term, the controversial declaration of a state of emergency. I would like you to speak to that as well, because we've looked through the laws and the Constitution. Everybody can argue about the state of emergency, but removing elected officials, there's nothing in the Constitution that we've seen, but the government has argued to the contrary to that effect. I'd like your broad take on what is playing out, because according to Wole Soyinka, we had a conversation with him. He said, as much as it's neither this or that, but the issue of suspending elected officials in his books is we walking on a slippery path, and it's the use of excessive powers. I don't know what your take is, sir.
You know, let me tell you something. When I even talk, because I come from the background, my home, the first Nigerian politician was my great-granduncle, Papa Herbert Macaulay, who formed the first political party in this country in 1922. Now, this shenanigan going on just didn't start. I have before me here a document, the speech made by Papa Awolowo in 1962. You remember the 1962 political crisis? Maybe you
Yes.
are, I don't know whether you've been born then or no, you were
No,
too young or whatever.
I was
Remind
far
you,
away from being born, but
the
I know the
same
history.
the 1962 crisis in Western region. I was in secondary school. Now I'm 80 years old. So you can imagine how long ago it all started. The Baba warned them, speaking to the prime minister in the parliament on this issue of the declaration of emergency. He said, and I quote, secondly, what is public emergency? What is a state of public emergency? May I say that my view, quite candidly, is that a state of public emergency arises only when there is a widespread violence in any part of the federation. Was there any widespread violence in Rivers State? Simplicity. So how did they come about throwing everybody under the bus? Was there any widespread violence in Rivers State? That was how this mess started in the Federal House, in 1962. And Baba Awolowo, as the opposition leader, addressing the prime minister, advised that if there is no widespread emergency, violence, why are you declaring state of emergency in Western region? Yes, there was a scuffle created by the man who was their friend, Akitola, in the house. And Baba said he himself was physically present in the assembly. And when he walked out, he said two people started the crisis. They jumped on the table and were running around trying to break the maze, and the police arrested them. Then he walked out. People outside didn't even know what was going on. Then he asked the question, is there a violence in what this place called in Ibadan? Or is there a violence in Ogbomoso? Is there a violence in Badagry? Is there a violence in Ajegule? He said, so why are you now, because at that time Badagry, Ajegule were all under Western region. He said, so why are you declaring state of emergency? So that was how the whole thing started. And you know what happened? Because they just wanted to punish the opposition party. He led us to the first coup in 1966, January, the counter coup in 66, July, the civil war in 1967, and so many Nigerians died for nothing. for nothing. So when you are now declaring this state of emergency without the parameters that will entitle you to do it, you just felt you had to clamp these people down. It is unconstitutional. It is in absolute injustice. It's a tramp on civility. For God's sake, we got to be very, very careful. Have we learned anything from history? That was how the First Republic collapsed.
Chief,
and I tell you something.
Okay, go ahead.
When there was a lot of crisis in Ife, Mudakeke, Baba Obasanjo was the president. The then governor of Osun, Papa Akonde, went to him to request that he should please do something about the people in his state, that the security situation was dire. Baba Obasanjo called me to go there alone to meet with Papa, the governor. I went there, had a discussion. I said, I have very little knowledge of this place. I didn't go there to try manipulating the system so that it could benefit PDP. I said, give me a knowledgeable person. And he appointed a civil servant, a permanent secretary, deep-rooted knowledge about the state. He told me all the story, how Mudakeke came to Ife and all that. Then I moved into it. I called the Ife people, the leaders. I called the Mudakeke people. I put them on the third day. We all drove around the whole place. In 5 days, we found a solution. I am from PDP. Papa was AD. We did not manipulate the system to suit us. That is what you call proper management. Sense of security and sense of decency, sense of humility. Today, since that day till today, there had been no crisis in Osun State. So why are we trying? First of all, you clamp down. The judiciary slammed a judgment on the governor. You see perpetually the hand of the voice of Jacob and the hand of Esau. You call the leaders of Pandem, all the elders like Papa Diete Spiff and former governor of Akwa Ibom for a meeting. The second day, the statement credited to Weke was so explosive. Then by the third day, you sacked an elected governor, and you now have put a military officer in charge. This is not a military administration, for God's sake. No president since 1999 has the nerve to remove a sitting governor, an elected governor. No.
Chief, just a moment, sir. People will argue that Chief Obasanjo did it, although the court had made its own statement, not really speaking to the substantive issue. So that precedent is there, which a lot of people have frowned at, that it's still unconstitutional. But I want to bring to your notice some of the things they are raising as justifying their position. Two things, basically. In Section 305, subsection 3D, they said there is a clear and present danger of an actual breakdown of public order and public safety in the Federation or any part thereof, requiring extraordinary measures to avert, that's the word I want to go to avert such danger. Do you think that, and then the issue of the dramatis personnel being the governor and the House of Assembly, which is why both of them were suspended in this case. So do you think that the president over-panicked in this situation, or he just didn't want it to snowball into a full-blown crisis before he gets to do something, given the state of the economy and the place Rivers holds?
The most sensitive part of it would have been for him. I just told you about Ife Mudakeke. We could have used that as an advantage, political advantage for my party. The one you are talking about, Baba Obasanjo, in Plateau State, the people requested for it. When it was Jonathan's time, Yes, there was Boko Haram. They were abducting school children. They were killing people. And so he had to do something. He sent the military there, but not a single elected officer was removed. None. But why you call the pandemic? Go home, please, leaders. Go and, make sure that you resolve this crisis in the Ijaw kingdom. What is your business? The fact that the insensitivity about being not your party would have cautioned you, should have given you a bit of what we call inner strength to avoid this classification of absolute injustice, a misuse of power. And forever and ever, history will repeat it. So what do you want to be remembered for? We could have done that. I told you about the Femuda Keke. We went there, we resolved it. Baba Akonde continued as the governor until the next election. The one in Adamawa, Yobe, and Borono, nobody. Why do you think we have people who can mediate? Why did you call the Pandef the leaders of the Ijaw kingdom that spread from Ondo State to Akwa Ibom? Only for you to now decide, yes, the third day, they haven't even started to meet. You just slammed it, and then this young man that you put there, oh, you should go, and then you have now released money to him. Are you now the Supreme Court? The Supreme Court said they should not give them money until the next election. The next election to do this, what did you do? You have now released funds for him. It's not done. And you must be particularly careful.
Chief,
because it is not your party.
Chief,
everybody will interpret it otherwise.
Chief, that's another controversial hot button you've raised, and which is what we are also looking at. But we cannot absolve the National Assembly. Let's assume that the president was. Let's assume that the president was, wrong or was misguided or was lied to, whatever term you want to use. But there's a National Assembly that has a composition of two bicameral chambers to caution or to put it right. Now, I listened to them. They made some amendment to the gazetted document sent to them, but nobody even went near the issue of suspension of the governor. Now, this is the shocking part, which we are all shocked, and I want you to respond, because members of your party are in the National Assembly. They should have stood up to say, okay, we do not agree. An issue as controversial, as divisive as this decision of the president had unanimous, literal, overwhelming support on both floors. We don't understand that. And your party was there.
Let me tell you. If they were quite honest with themselves, because I just read some portions of what Papa Awolowo, the speech he delivered in 1962 at the National Parliament before the Prime Minister and the other members of the House. This is history. Now, all those people, I want to thank Senator Dixon from Bayelsa, Abaribe from Abia, Tambua from Sokoto. They worked out. And the only way you can know whether they were honest with themselves or dishonest with themselves was the procedure carried out. It was a voice vote. How many people were authentically seated and that they made the quorum? They formed a quorum in both houses. That's the result we are getting. There was no quorum. Majority of the people were not even in the country. Now, so he is now sitting on the speaker, who is APC, and Senator Fabio, who is also APC, as leaders. Voice vote. Anybody will tell you, yes, the yes have it, the no's have it. In civilized country, with the depth of this kind of a situation, they will come out one by one. they will list out as they are voting people. It will be showing on the computer table how many people voted, how many people were there, how many people were absent, who said yes, who said no. It was a charade, absolute nonsense. It's a shame on this country. And that is why people like Baba are concluding that democracy has failed. It's not the democracy that has failed. The people failed it. Democracy is so well defined. Government of the people, by the people, for the people. As stated by Abraham Lincoln many, many years ago. The power rests with the people. But in this country, the few people got through there with a manipulated, a disjointed electoral process. What do you expect? Garbage in, garbage out. When are we going to change? It sickens me. As a Nigerian at this age, nothing. I grew up here. I went to school here.
Okay.
We are failing the people. The attitude is negative. It's bad. I am asking all the electorate, let them wake up. Let our people wake up. Next election, let justice, fairness, and equity reign. If we don't, we will not have a country.
All right, Chief.
It is disheartening, disgraceful, and absolute nonsense. Nonsense.
All right, Chief.
It's not only Judge Bola, the legislator, the executive. The electoral process itself it stinks. Stinks.
All right, Chief. All right, strong words, Chief. It's an ongoing conversation. There are other things. I wish you had an hour to talk, but there are other things to get your input on.
Right.
That's the much we can take. Thank you so much, Chief Bode George, life member of the PDP Board of Trustees. Thank you so much for coming through whenever we call on you, sir. Thank you, sir.
My pleasure always. My pleasure. I wish Nigeria the best of luck. And I am praying that the good people of rivers, both those who live on land and those who live by the riverine area, the job people, they must please don't go violent.
Okay.
Let them be resilient. Let them be calm. 6 months will soon roll over.
Okay.
Let the will of the Almighty God prevail.
Thank you, sir.
It will be well with them. Because you know why? Why I'm saying this? The first major battle that the British had when they came to Nigeria was in Opobo.
Okay.
They abducted King Jaja of Opobo. You remember? They exiled him for committing no crime. Yes. The next thing was Sarowiwa, and then Adaka Boro. Why? What is this?
Yeah,
these are people. These are Nigerians.
I like the perspective of history, and that's a good place to just hang it, because fantastic points you've made, but the time we do not have. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you for coming on the program.
My pleasure.
Absolutely.
Have a nice day.
You too, sir.